This meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency for March 18th, 2024 is in session. Do we have an approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And now citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda. This would be for the CRA meeting. Hearing none, let's move on to new business,
Oh, wait.
4.1.
Vice Mayor, we've got one individual.
Oh, we do have one.
Oh, is this public comment for not the,
Council meeting is in a half an hour.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Thanks. So 4.1,
Approve a declaration of restricted covenant for property located at 1277 Grove Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
I'll try to speak up. Last time they told me that my voice was not projecting enough in the audience, so I'll do my best today. For the record, Jesus Nino, Executive Director for the CRA. This first item, 4.1, is staff is requesting approval of a declaration of restricted covenant for property located at 1277 Grove Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. Basically, a summary for the public here. I know we have a memo before you, but for the public that's here in the audience, on February 12th, 2024, the Community Redevelopment Agency approved a Fourth Amendment to the Agreement for Development and Purchase of Sale to Archway. I'm knocking this down here, trying to be loud. Archway Clearwater Gardens LLC. The agreement requires the execution of a declaration of restricted covenant instead of a perpetual easement, restricting the use of the community garden on site as a community garden. Repeat that. Restricting the use of the community garden site to use the community garden for the benefit, use, and enjoyment of the public. This change basically eliminates the need for the city to procure, manage, and contract with future operators and users of the garden. Archway would take on this responsibility. The property will be used solely as a community garden for a period of 30 years, commencing on the effective date of the declaration and for no other use. With that, staff is recommending approval for this item.
Very good. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you. I just have one question. It's about the phrasing for enjoyment of the public. It means more than just the residents of Archway Community Gardens, correct? It means more people throughout the city.
The public is wide encompassing of basically anyone.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, it's good we're protecting the garden for the next 30 years at least. 4.2.
We got a motion to
I
approve.
need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 4.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Yes, we do need to allow individuals to comment if there was anybody to comment on that motion, so.
Thank you.
So
I'm new here. So do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? No? All right, we have, this has been moved and seconded, correct? I'll add my aye, that makes it unanimous, approved. 4.2 now.
approve the Community Redevelopment Agency companion grant for the Gotham residential project on the bluff and reallocate $750,000 from the vacancy reduction grant program.
Mr. Nino.
Thank you. This is item 4.2. Again, staff is requesting approval of the Community Redevelopment Agency's companion grant for the Gotham residential project on the bluffs and reallocate $750,000 from the vacancy reduction grant program line item. Again, for the audience here, the history, on February 1st, 2024, the City Council approved a substantive amendment to the city's purchase and sale agreement for the old City Hall site. That pertains to the CRA, this amendment approved on February 1st creates a new condition precedent to closing on the buyers, which entitles the buyers to a CRA grant in the amount of $2,250,000 upon substantial completion of the project. Because these funds are being allocated out of the CRA funds, only the CRA can approve the final approval to that portion of the agreement. As provided in the agreement, in the amendment approved on February 1st, if the buyer successfully closed on the real estate by March 1st of 2026, the CRA grant in the amount of $2,250,000 will be dispersed upon commencement of construction instead of being deferred until substantial completion. In addition, if the buyer successfully closed on the real estate by March 1st, 2026, the CRA will disperse an additional $1 million early closing incentive grant upon commencement of the construction. This item seeks approval to allocate and set aside $3,250,000 CRA funds for this grant, but no portion of these funds will be dispersed to the buyers unless and until conditions and it's in this item and the fourth amendment to the contract for purchase of real estate, of real property, which approved by the City Council February 1st, 2024, are met. To fund the $3,250,000, staff is requesting approval from the trustees to transfer $750,000 from the vacancy reduction grant program line item. And to date, none of this allocation has been utilized, nor are there any current applications in progress right now, so there shouldn't be any issue with transferring these funds. The remaining $252,500,000 is being funded administratively through the use of city TIF funds already available in the housing project line item of the city CRA budget. With that, staff is recommending approval. Thank you.
Very good. Questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you. I just had a comment. So this is just moving dollars around and earmarking them in different categories on paper. So we continue to earn interest on all those millions of
Yes.
dollars.
It's just moving around the budget.
And then the other thing, we are reallocating $750,000 from the vacancy reduction grant program that was for downtown activation. Is there a remaining balance in that grant program?
There is. I just don't have that number in front of me right now, but I can get it to you and the rest of the trustees.
Okay, because I know you wanted to, the legislation text said reallocate because it hasn't been utilized, but, if we do want to push it again or try to advertise or incentivize.
And that's exactly the reason why it wasn't really used, because of marketing. It hasn't been heavily marketed for that particular program. But we are expecting to go ahead and do a marketing campaign for all our existing grant programs. And we still have sufficient funding. But again, I'll get you that number.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone from the public like to speak to this? Hearing no one. All in favor?
No,
Or
I
motion.
move to,
Can I hear a motion?
I move to approve agenda
Okay.
item 4.2.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Approved. 4.3.
Approve the North Greenwood Community Redevelopment Citizens Advisory Committee policy.
On May 23rd of 2023, the North Greenwood Community Redevelopment Area was formally established here in the city of Clearwater, which is under the purview of the Community Redevelopment Agency. But in the plan, basically it calls for a citizens advisory committee. And we have kind of collected a few applications, but before we do a heavy campaign out there, which we're planning on doing, and I'll let you know a little bit more about that in my director's report, we need policies in place for that committee. So what's attached here to your memos is a set of policies that staff put together for the North Greenwood Community Development Area. It's nothing spectacular, but they need rules of engagements to be able to operate their meetings. So basically right now, the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee, 3 members will be appointed by the City Council, 2 members by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners. Then each one of those members will serve a 2-year term, staggered terms up front, so that whenever those 2 years are over, all of them just don't drop off and then we have to start over. So they'll have staggered terms up front. This body, or CAC, just want to make it clear to the public, whoever's watching, this is a recommending body. It's providing recommendations to the Community Development Agency. So they'll be looking at our budgets, our programs, or have ideas and so forth, and then once they provide a recommendation, the director, I will bring that back before you so you guys can make a decision on either to go with that recommendation or not. And this is also basically a governmental body, so they will have to operate under the sunshine laws. So that is, staff internally will get them training because we will serve as basically their staff. And the CAC, they're gonna operate without any compensation, just like the trustees, you don't get compensated. Chapter 163, Part 3 for the Redevelopment Act calls that you can't be compensated, so neither will any of these CAC members, just like any other committees the city has. They won't be compensated. This is gonna be volunteer individuals. Other than that, they will operate under Robert's Rule of Order, and we'll be there to help them and help them push projects and ideas forward. With that, staff is recommending approval, and I'm here for questions.
Very good. Questions, comments? Councilmember Beckman.
Thanks. I have one question about the application. So when applicants fill out an application, will the county commissioners be looking at the same application, or will they have a different format of appointing two people to the
Right now,
advisory
staff,
committee?
we're reaching out to the county, to the individuals that deal with our CRAs, in addition to their administration. But the way we're thinking right now, we did kind of consult with the city clerk as well, is that we'll collect applications, then we'll bring those applications to you. Before we bring them to you, we'll kind of vet them through the city clerk's criteria and whatever criteria we have in our policy here. Then bring you all those applications, and you'll make the decision on the applicants that you feel you want to appoint. The rest of the applications, unless we get some more news from the city attorney and our city clerk, we'll forward those to the Board of County Commissioners for them to look at those applications and make their decision on two members.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Hearing no one, do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 4.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved, unanimous. So, Mr. Nino, Director's Report?
As far as the director's report, now that you kind of created a baseline date for our policies for our CAC, we're very happy. That's a big milestone, because now we can start basically a recruitment campaign. So what we're doing now is staff is immediately going to get to work on preparing outreach material, a communications plan, basically a stakeholder communications engagement plan, so that we can basically outreach to as much of the North Greenwood community as possible to have a very good recruitment campaign. So they're going to be putting together flyers, potential videos. We're going to be putting together, scheduling public meetings with the Urban Leadership Coalition at the community center and so forth. Just try to get as much outreach out there so we can get good quality applicants. And that's going to be around 3 weeks to put that together. Once we have that material put together, the outreach preparation materials, then we'll basically advertise for an additional 30 days or maybe 6 weeks, so we can kind of collect applications, and during that entire time, we'll be available to the public to answer questions. I'll take myself over to the library or anywhere out there, and anyone has questions, they can come meet me directly and I can answer their questions. And once we close out that period of collecting applications, with city clerk's guidance, we'll review those applications. That'll be about 2 weeks or so. Then from there, we'll schedule those applications to come before the trustees for approval. So then we'll have 3 CAC members, then we'll forward the rest to the county, and then they'll approve the remaining 2. Then after that, we'll schedule our first CAC meeting.
It's exciting to see this moving forward. Anyone else have anything you'd like to say to Mr. Nino? Councilmember?
Just an
Teixeira.
opportunity for you to clarify.
Yes, ma'am.
After the 3 from Clearwater are identified, the remaining pool will then be forwarded to the county. They don't have their own pool.
They
of
could,
candidates.
once I contact them, if they want to have their own pool, I guess they could do that. It's, the community redevelopment area plan is very vague. It just calls that they will appoint 2 CAC members.
But they can use our pool of candidates or their own.
Correct.
Okay.
If I'm mistaken, you let me know.
No. I was just going to clarify. So right now, his staff has contacted the county, so we're trying to clarify what their desire is. So it's either A, we collect the pool, the remaining, we collect the applications, the remaining pool would then be given to the county and they decide, or do they want how we typically do it for regional appointments, that is, council or the trustees, in this case, would make a recommendation to the county, and they would approve or not approve. So
Okay.
right now, we're trying to confirm what they would like to do.
Okay, thank you.
And honestly, as a director here, I'm kind of recommending that strategy where you appoint 3, but you also provide a recommendation for the 2 additional members. Then we forward those recommendations plus the rest of the applications to the county.
Okay.
Very good. Anything else? Councilmember Beckman.
Are you finished with your director's report?
Yes.
Okay. So I had a question about, do you know of any new leases downtown, in our downtown at all? Any updates on new businesses, the Cleveland Street Market, anything, any updates that way?
I didn't prepare anything for that, but I think moving forward, if that's what the trustees want, I'll start to bring you data as far as what grants we have in place that we're working on, different opportunities that are out there, and just give you more robust updates that we'll have staff prepare all that in advance. So when I get it here, basically it'll be dispersed to all of you before the meeting even starts, and you can look at it, then we can have a Q&A.
Great. And then can we plan on, like at the next CRA meeting, you'll have a category for the North Greenwood CRA updates as well as the downtown ones?
That was the intent today, but because the agenda's pretty short, I decided to start next month. Now that we do have a approved CAC guidelines, we can have more information to report on both CRAs.
Okay. And I'm going to give a bit of an update at the latter part of our council meeting about some state legislation related to the homeless that's on the governor's desk. I just wanted to ask if you had any idea on any change in the number of homeless that are presenting in our downtown?
I do not personally, I don't have that information, but if anyone from staff does, then they can feel free to come up here and provide it.
Okay. And then do you want to comment at all about, I'm a little curious about the idea of using ARPA funds to pay for CRA staff, and whether that's an appropriate use of those funds, especially when we have a new North Greenwood CRA. And so I understand you're looking at an opinion from the Attorney General about the flow through of TIF funds between the downtown CRA and the North Greenwood CRA.
And let me give my comment before Mr. Margolis provides an update as far as the opinion to the Attorney General. Basically, from what I understand, it was ARPA funds when it was given to the city. Now it's general fund over here, but I understand that. My understanding is usually that you're not supposed to be sharing basically trust funds or basically funds from one community redevelopment area to the next. And of course, that's why we're getting the Attorney General opinion. I think we can't do that. But
Can't?
that we cannot do
Okay.
that right now, but I'm just staff, I'm not an
Yep,
attorney.
yep, got it,
So
got
Mr.
it.
Margolis will get that opinion, and he's way smarter than I am in law. I have no credibility in law. He's the attorney. But until we get that opinion, I think that we do need to move funds, and we'll, as far as into our budget for North Greenwood, because we are going to start doing work out there more actively. So we do need to have a portion of staff's funds, and that's the only revenue we have right now, funded through the North Greenwood area until we get that opinion. But once I sit down and discuss it further with our attorney and our administration, maybe we won't have to do that. But I'm thinking we do have to do that for right now, just to cover ourselves, so when we do get audited at the end of the year, then we don't get dinged for that particular item of having staff doing work in North Greenwood being funded out of downtown CRA funds.
But I'm thinking that, in the state, I mean, what do we have, 100 different CRAs in the state? I don't know, at least in the double digits, right?
Yes.
Throughout the state. And unless a CRA was designated on the cusp or during COVID with ARPA funds, how do CRAs get started, jump-started? It has to come from...
And that's usually whenever you see that tax increment finance model
Yep.
as a triangle.
Yep.
I usually dispute that, but it's not a perfect triangle. It's the line of your base year, and then you have a gap right here, then the triangle starts where the increment grows. But usually it's seed money up front that's usually granted or loaned by the governing body, which is usually the city, out of their general fund or whatever it may be. Plus, the statute also says in there, and I forgot the section, where increment revenue is not the only revenue we can have. We can also, go off after grants and so forth to have in our revenue stream.
I just wonder about a couple things. Number one, ARPA funds for salaries, if it's to fill a small amount until TIF funds keep coming in, that might be one thing, but that's not the intent of ARPA funds, and that's not the way most cities operate when they have a new CRA. And so I think there's some concern about using those ARPA funds in that way. I think we set them aside for the North Greenwood to get things going, and, there'd be a conversation about getting things going, paying for salaries or for grants or buying property or doing economic activation or development in that community. They're two different things.
I understand, and we'll discuss it internally more.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just don't want to be one of those communities that someone makes a complaint to the state auditor general or something like that, because I do keep up with attorney general opinions plus auditor general opinions, and I kind of get lessons learned from other cities
Sure.
as far as being dinged and so forth. And I just want to do things the right way, and that's why we have a CRA attorney and administration, other staff and other people around the state to kind of
Great.
ask questions too.
Thank you. I appreciate that being safe rather than sorry. But just wanted to make sure, that was out there, a concern. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Nino. With that, we will bring this meeting of the CRA to a conclusion, and we'll see you all back at 1:30 for the council meeting. Good afternoon. I call this meeting of the City Council for March 18th, 2024 to order. If you wish to address the council, please complete a comment card, which you can find over here next to the clerk, seated to the right of the dais. When called to speak, please hand your card back to the clerk. Now let's all rise for an invocation to be given by Deacon Will Huertas from St. Cecilia's Catholic Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for having me. Dear God, our Creator, our Father, as we come together, we pray with gratitude. We pray for this council and all the members to be in good health, body, mind, and spirit. We pray for humility in our hearts and hope to find truth, trust, and transparency. Thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hence in daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning. Every project, every season, every life, nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Forgive us for our pride, the pride that puffs up and the pride that threatens to unqualify us. Strengthen our confidence in who you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently with peace, patience, and prudency. Bless this meeting today and all those here present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterwards. Ready us to make every moment count with an open heart. In God we trust. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Will.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America. All right, well, Mayor Ongst was feeling a little under the weather today, so I'm Vice Mayor Mark Bunker, and I'll be your master of ceremonies, as it were. Let's introduce the folks on the dais. We're starting off here with our city manager,
Good afternoon.
Jennifer Poyer, Councilmember Kathleen Beckman,
Good afternoon.
Councilmember Lena Teixeira,
Good afternoon.
and Councilmember David Albritton,
Good afternoon.
and our esteemed attorney, David Margolis.
Good afternoon.
All right, we have some special recognitions and awards to give out. Randy Cohen from the VP of Research at Americans for the Arts, would you please come forward?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, you ready? Oh, okay, good. So everybody can see the presentation. Thank you. I'm Randy Cohen. I'm Vice President of Research at Americans for the Arts. And I am here to first thank you for your support for the arts and investing and creating policies that are making Clearwater a more creative, cultural, and livable community. And bring a good news story that goes with that. Because we all love the arts, right? They make us feel creative. They bring joy to our communities. They inspire us, create more livable communities. But the fact is, they're also good for the economy. They're good for local businesses. And that's the story we're going to talk about today. Clearwater was part of a national study we did looking at the economic impact of nonprofit arts and culture organizations across the United States, one of 373 regions in every state in Puerto Rico. And we look just at the nonprofit arts and culture organizations and municipally owned, facilities as well, because typically, that's where the public's dollars are going. And let me give you a couple of highlights and talk about that a little bit. In 2022, total economic activity by arts and culture organizations and the event-related spending by their audiences, we'll talk about that, was $125.6 million. And that figure is actually composed of two numbers. Spending by the organizations themselves. Again, we appreciate the arts as wonderful amenities, but the fact is, they're businesses. They employ people locally, they purchase goods and services from other businesses, they're members of the Chamber of Commerce, they're tourism drivers, good business citizens. And like any business, they have an economic impact. But unlike most industries, they generate a lot of event-related spending. Think of the last time you went to an arts event. Maybe you paid for parking, had dinner, went out after the show, got home, paid for babysitting or a dog walker. Maybe you've traveled or and had a hotel cost. So we looked at the also the economic impact of the 1.9 million attendees at arts and culture events in Clearwater. And these numbers are just for Clearwater. And you can see $51.7 million in spending by the organizations, an additional $73.9 million in spending by their audiences. So that's how we get that total economic activity figure of $125.6 million. Well, what's the economic impact of that? The first thing we look at is what everybody cares about the most, jobs. 1,810 jobs supported as a result of that spending by our arts organizations and the event-related spending by audiences. Little something about these jobs. Arts organizations employ more than just artists and curators. They've also got electricians and plumbers and security staff, and we've all got accountants and auditors and marketing and box office people. And if you're an arts center, you pay a massive utility bill, right? So our arts organizations support a range of jobs across the community. So these jobs are more than just artists. And then, of course, also built into that is the jobs in the hospitality industry. Another thing about these jobs, these are necessarily local jobs. These are not the kind of jobs that are going to be offshore. We need the curators hanging the art. We need the performers on the stage. We need the arts educators in the schools and the arts therapists in the hospitals. Bottom line, arts, not just food for the soul, putting food on the table for 1,810 households right here in Clearwater. What else? Government revenue, $24.6 million in revenue to local, state, and federal government. A lot of times we fund the arts and, we worry like, well, boy, are those dollars on some one-way trip out of town? No, it actually comes back and brings in revenue as well. So, it's not a frill or an extra, it's an investment. Small investment, big returns. That's what we get with the arts. I want to dig a little bit real quickly into the value-added aspect of the arts. So we interviewed attendees at a whole range of arts events, performing events, visual arts, open-air festivals, expensive ones, free ones. The typical attendee, and we're talking about 1.9 million attendees in Clearwater, spends $39.88 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. And you can see all those different pieces of the pie. None of those are admission. And so you've got, food and, transportation would be parking. And so you might be looking at lodging, wow, can you still get a room here for $7.04? And would you want it if you could get it? No. Not everybody's got a lodging cost, right? So these are averages. In addition to how much did you spend at this arts event that you're attending, we also ask folks for their zip code, because we want to find out, do they live in Pinellas County, which would make them local, or are they from outside the county? 29% of attendees came from outside the county. And do they spend differently? Of course they do. $53.05 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. We asked those non-local attendees another question, which was, why are you here? we're glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Are you here on business? You're here visiting friends and family? Two big reasons people travel. 83%, 4 in 5 said, we're here specifically for this arts event. So you can really see the pulling power of the arts. If you're a local business, you love this vibrant arts and culture community that we're in, because it's putting heads in beds and cheeks in seats and derrieres and cafe chairs, right? So it's good for local businesses. A little bit about the lodging. 29% of those attendees from outside the county, 12% of the attendees had a lodging cost. They average $192 per person per event. And we only count one night of the overnight because it's a conservative approach. We want to keep it, related to just that arts event. We know a lot of the tourism data, is multiple nights. Because none of us are probably thinking, what our next arts event's going to be based on which has the best economic impact. We also asked some questions about what the arts really mean to us as individuals. And these numbers, all around 80%, about 4 out of 5 attendees say this arts and culture event is a source of pride and community identity. Similar percentages, I'd feel a sense of loss if this were no longer available to the community. And I think the most interesting one, the bottom one there, 80% say, it's important to me that this arts and culture event be available to future generations. What that tells me is that when we go to an arts event, it's not just a one-time transactional experience. The arts are really part of our culture, our community, where we've been, our history, our heritage, where we are, where we're going. So folks feel the arts deeply here. I'm in Washington, D.C., the land of national organizations, as many of you know, and I just want you to know that as part of this report, we have a number of national organizations that you may be members of as partners on it. U.S. Conference of Mayors, League of Cities, National Association of Counties. If you're, with the business community, you pay attention to the conference board. Tourism people, they go, to be with Destinations International. All partners on your study because, one, they too believe arts, culture, fundamental component of a healthy community, and 2, they buy into the methodology and they buy into the results. We use a very rigorous, conservative approach. Thank you for your support of the arts. Thank you for hearing about the study today. All these reports are available online. They're 58 pages. Everything I've talked about is in there. Everything you do to support the arts is important, and you're important for doing it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Having been in theater for many years myself and in music, I certainly appreciate the arts and what it brings to a community. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilmember Teixeira.
First of all, thank you for such an animated presentation. Full disclosure, when I read this study many months ago, I felt validated because as an artist, I've always had these uncomfortable conversations where I couldn't justify the arts in a tangible way. And this study did with such hard numbers. And it also validated our concern about how Clearwater is viewed regionally. We always feel that we need to be more involved and more recognized. And so and I apologize because I'm going to actually do a deep dive in your study and actually give you some numbers,
Sure.
not give you, but repeat,
Yeah.
right? It shows that even though I believe that Clearwater has not received as many resources as a city like St. Pete, it just shows how significant and important we are. Because this data did not include the Baycare Sound and several other events that are signature events. But even with that in mind, when you look at the economic impact of the nonprofit arts and cultural industry, we were at 24.6 million and St. Pete was at 26. We're like really, really close. When you look at the impact of the spending of the organizations, we were at 8 million versus St. Pete was 9.8. Again, very close. And then it goes on. These numbers are always very close. But when you look at the spending of nonprofits we in Clearwater totaled 73.9 million, and St. Pete was actually less, 70.9. So my point is, can you imagine if we felt more love and got more support and more resources, how much we would actually benefit and give back to our community? So I really want to thank you for this study. It's once and for all made it a tangible dialogue. And then, if you don't mind, because I really am passionate about this, I want to read the conclusion, which I thought was very powerful. When communities invest in art and cultures, they are not investing in community development at the expense of economic development. Rather, they are investing in an industry that stimulates the economy, supports local jobs, and contributes to building healthy, vibrant, and more livable communities. So thank you very much, because I will be using this as my Bible.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Councilmember Alberton.
So I think Clearwater's been kind of a leader in arts going all the way back to when I was a child growing up. I mean, we had, back in the 60s, we had the Star Spectacular concerts that came, and Clearwater had as many of the top performers in the United States as New York, Chicago, LA. They came to Little Clearwater at the time, which was really neat for us because we got to meet the headliners, and and then back in the 90s, we've always had all kind of art culture here. I've been really proud of it, so it's good to see the figures on there. Thank you for bringing them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, next, from the Marine Advisory Board, can we bring up Chairman Michael Groman? We have a presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Michael Groman. I've been a member of the Marine Advisory Board for several years, currently serving as its chairman. The purpose of the MAB is to review issues and projects conducted by the city's Marine Department, make recommendations as appropriate, and serve as a forum where citizens can comment on these projects or bring other marine matters to the city's attention. Consistent with that goal, I'd like to briefly review 4 projects that have been recently completed or are underway. First, the wave attenuators for the downtown marina. These were damaged in recent hurricanes. You're aware of that, of course, as the council had to approve significant funding for these repairs. The work on the south side of the marina was completed in early February. The MAB reviewed this project multiple times during our quarterly meetings, as it took a significant amount of time to design, approve, build, ship, and finally install the new attenuators. Repairs for the north side, due to damage from Hurricane Ian in September of 2022, are currently being planned, with funding expected to come from FEMA reimbursement, insurance claims, and Marine Reserve funds. 2 years ago, citizens living along Stevenson's Creek came to the MAB and expressed concern that more and more boats were traveling over the creek at high speeds, creating shore damage and erosion issues, as well as a safety issue for such a small body of water, and potential harm to manatees, which are frequently seen in that area. This is the section of the creek from Betty Lane to where it enters the intercoastal waterway waters at Edgewater Drive. Various alternatives were considered to solve the problem, perhaps a manatee protection area or minimum wake zones. But because of regulations from various parties, FWC, other state and county parties, it can be very difficult to create new zones. Fortunately, it was learned that existing laws allow a 300-foot minimum wake zone on either side of the bridges. There are 3 such bridges at Edgewater, Douglas Avenue, and Betty Lane, and they pretty much cover most, although not all, of the area where the high-speed operation was occurring. The city staff had some challenges getting workboats into the area under the low bridges, but all of that is resolved. The new signage is now in place, mostly there since last fall. Third, another ongoing concern has been that of derelict vessels, which often stem from boats indefinitely anchored in our waters. This has been a particular issue in Mandalay Channel. Some anchored boats are unoccupied, but many are liveaboards. Since these boats rarely or never move, there are always concerns about whether waste products are being illegally discharged, which is difficult to detect and difficult to enforce. State regulations have made it difficult to take action against these anchored vessels. But more recent changes allowed counties to create ALAs, anchor limitation areas, with a limit of 45 days within a 6-month period. The Marine staff has obtained this ALA designation from the county and is now preparing to install signage that hopefully will help with this issue. With respect to the Mandalay Channel, there is a new issue emerging, and I've been advised to bring it up today in hopes that the council will direct the Marine and Aviation Director to find a solution. Recently, wakeboarding has become very popular in the channel. This consists of boats weighted down with water in the stern section of their hulls to create very large wakes that surfers then ride on their surfboards or their wakeboards. The area is currently marked as a ski zone, but this new phenomenon somehow needs to be excluded, and I hope the staff can find some kind of reasonable solution. Lastly, fourth, the largest and most important project underway is one that you're all very familiar with, of course, the reconstruction of the beach marina. I know that you have reviewed this project in detail multiple times, and of course you had to approve significant funding for the work. In our December MAB meeting, a number of citizens, mostly owners and operators of commercial vessels in the marina, came to the MAB to express numerous concerns about the project. Their concerns were primarily in 3 areas. First, upland support, meaning would there be enough space, both during and after reconstruction, for equipment storage, ice machines, parking, other items. Location, as boats, commercial boats in particular, are relocated to new slips, what about their proximity to the new locations of kiosks, and would that work? And lastly, safety. As some clients are located to new slips, would they have enough maneuvering space to safely dock and undock? Now, obviously, not all of these concerns are easily solved, and we discussed that with the citizens at the MAB meeting. Parking at the marina, for instance, as you well know, is a perennial concern, and this project will remove 38 spaces, of course. But I understand you're actively considering a new parking garage at the marina, and should that come to pass, it would provide not only more parking, but adequate storage for marina customers. The safety item has already been resolved by the Marine staff, and they continue to try and address these other items. Thank you for listening, and I would just close by saying it's a pleasure to have at least some small part in trying to protect and preserve probably some of the most beautiful waterfronts and waterways anywhere. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Councilmember Albritton.
Thank you, Mr. Groman, for bringing this up. I've been contacted by several people on Island Estates about the wakeboard.
Yeah.
And I've actually gone out there and watched them. It's a wakeboard school that goes into this narrow Mandalay Channel, and they stay there for half a day, going back and forth, throwing these gigantic waves up. And I see that's very disrupting for the people that have boats along the edges of the water. You know, years ago, we designated that portion from North Island Estates down to where you can actually, I guess it's almost where the boat launch is from
By
the
the
beach.
Recreation Center, correct.
And that's designated as a no wake zone for boats over 25 feet. And they didn't want to take the water skiing areas away from people, and they figure if somebody went through with a boat less than 25 feet and one motor, that it wouldn't throw up a big enough wake to really matter. You know, they wanted to see people enjoy that. Well, people don't really water ski so much anymore, but this wakeboard thing, this is exactly what they did not want in that narrow channel, is large waves. That's why they put that designation on the 25-foot and above boats. Because Bell Harbor was being built at the time, and the hotels with these gigantic boats, and they didn't want them coming around, you know, on plane, throwing up big waves. Well, these little tiny 20-foot wakeboard, they throw up bigger waves than the big boats.
Exactly.
So I'd like to see us come up with some kind of an alteration of that ordinance where we can maybe make it as a wave size in that area instead of the size of a boat. I'm gonna just ask council if they think that's something that we should pursue, because these little boats actually do more damage than the big ones. And I think the intent was to keep the wave action down. And I'd like to pursue that if that's good. Maybe our marine director could come up with some kind of a thing to bring back to council to discuss, and maybe we can alter that ordinance a little bit.
Having seen some video of this, I have to agree. It is disturbing. I also spoke to some residents about the scaling back maybe the size of the new marina as well. So maybe we can have some discussions on that. I appreciate the fact that you had all the people here to raising their concerns and listening to them, hopefully take action. Yes.
This is one of those cases where lobbyists have to be careful what they wish for. So it used to be a time where cities could easily and expansively regulate the waterways within the jurisdiction of cities. Then the boating lobby came in and said, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, we think the state is better equipped to make all of these rules. And so in the early 2000s, they lobbied the state successfully to preempt most issues relating to waterway regulation, not everything, but have severely restricted local government's ability to regulate waterways, including within our jurisdiction. They have in recent years started to open that up just a little bit more to local regulation, the anchorage limitation area being an example of that. That statute literally, just changed within the past couple of years. Until then, neither the county nor the city was able to even restrict some of the anchorage issues that we've seen within the channel. When it comes to no wake zones, we have limited ability under state law to create by ordinance no wake zones. The only way we can do that, however, at least as I understand it, is when the no wake zone is within so many feet of a dock, fuel center, or others. It could be within 500 feet, could be within 300 feet. There's a series of criteria. We can look and see exactly where that boundary is drawn in the channel, depending on where our ordinance draws it, right, and just kind of pulling it up. Based on the legal description, we'll have to look at whether we have gone to the full limit of where we are putting some of those no wake zones. But I think the salient point for council is that we are somewhat limited by state law right now in what we can do. So certainly to the maximum extent that we can, we're happy to take a look at it. But I also want to be realistic for the public and for council that some of these issues may be preempted. And so we may be limited in how much we can accomplish at this time.
That is frustrating. Councilmember Albritton.
So maybe there's a way, this is a commercial venture that's out there. It's not a recreational venture. Maybe on the licensing end of it, if they're operating in Clearwater, we can designate that they have to do it in a larger area. This is just such a narrow waterway that it's disrupting everybody up there. Maybe they can go, we've got lots of waterways. They can go elsewhere and throw these big wakes up. But, in this area, when they can actually do so much damage to the public. It goes back to maybe so many feet from a dock might also do it. But we could look at it, I think, and maybe come up with something, I hope.
Yeah, I agree. And as we get into preparing for the next legislative season, this may be something the council wants to talk about as a body for a legislative agenda, because every community has very different waterways and different challenges relating to waterways. Right. The challenges that we have in Mandalay Channel could be very different, than the challenges that are located in a different city or a different county. And as Councilmember Albritton pointed out, I think we have some unique challenges here that could potentially form the basis of state lawmakers either creating carve-outs, special act, other things like that, if that's a direction the council is interested in. But in the meantime, we can certainly look at what we have available within the confines of general law. But again, I just want to be realistic with everyone and say that right now, some of our authority is limited in that regard.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you for your presentation. I was actually contacted by a resident this weekend about the beach marina design, and you said that a number of commercial vessel owners attended one of your quarterly meetings and talked about some of their concerns.
December, yes.
Did you have any residents attend? Part of the concern that this person communicated to me was that the expansion of the boat slips, I think we have an additional 50 maybe, encroaches in closer to residential, so on the south side of that beach marina. Did any residents present themselves or voice any concerns?
No residents came to voice that concern, and if I may ask Mike, are there additional slips? No, there's no additional slips, and I don't think it does infringe on the
Okay.
slips.
Dan Slaughter, the number of slips and the mixture of the slips is exactly the same with the current design.
Yeah,
The only
that's what I
difference is
thought.
it does take up a little bit of a larger footprint because there's more space to try to accomplish some of the things that he talked about from a maneuverability standpoint, but we are not expanding the number of slips.
Okay, all right.
I think it was that extra space that they were worried about, and I probably was
Same email,
talking to the
maybe?
same person. But thank you so much for
Okay,
the presentation.
thank you all.
Good to know.
All right. Moving on. Do we have an approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. 6.1,
Amend the city's fiscal year 2023-24 operating and capital improvement budgets at first quarter and pass ordinance 9753-24 and 9756-24 on first reading.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and Council, Kayleen Castle, Budget Director. This is the first quarter budget review for the fiscal year 23-24 budget. This report reflects 3 months of activity October through December, and also includes council action to date. In the general fund, revenues and expenditures are increased by $3,714,675. This includes the following council-approved appropriations of general fund reserves, which total $3,679,163. $250,000 to fund Amplified Clearwater sublease agreement, $213,785 to fund the North Ward Building Condition Assessment, $660,000 to fund the balance needed for Fire Station 47 construction, and $2,509,308 to fund the implementation of the classification and compensation study for general fund departments. Other general fund amendments recognize transfers totaling $35,512 from the Special Program Fund, which offset expenditure increases in economic development and housing and the fire department. Adjusted for all items in this report, general fund reserves are approximately $56.9 million, or 28.5% of the current year's general fund expenditure budget. This exceeds our minimum reserve requirement by $39.9 million at first quarter. All other operating funds include expenditure amendments, all previously approved by the council to fund the implementation of the classification and compensation study, and these increases are offset by allocations of their respective fund reserves. In addition to their salary increases in the Air Park Fund, we have an increase of $12,840, which is transferred to the Air Park Maintenance Project. And in the Garage Fund, an amendment recognizing an increase of $147,630 transferred to the Fuel Site Replacement Project, both of which were previously approved by council. In the Capital Improvement Fund, a net increase of $6,351,013 is reflected at first quarter, and this is primarily related to the following amendments, all of which have been previously approved. $213,785 of general fund revenues for the North Ward Preservation Project, $147,630 in garage fund revenues for the Fuel Site Replacement Project, $428,152 in lease purchase revenues in the Motorized Equipment Purchase Project, $1,130,000 in county reimbursement revenues, along with $660,000 in general fund revenues for the Fire Station 47 Replacement Project, $51,000 in FDOT grant revenues, and $12,840 in Air Park Fund revenue in the Air Park Maintenance and Repair Project, $640,000 in FDOT grant revenue, and $160,000 in reimbursement revenues from Fly USA and the Aviation Operations Center Project, $80,000 in FDOT grant revenue, and $20,000 in reimbursement revenues from Fly USA and the Air Park Property Survey Project, $1,154,763 transferred from the CRA for their Mercado Downtown Gateway Project, $620,000 in open space impact fees transferred to the Parkland Acquisition Project, and $302,106 in revenues anticipated to be reimbursed by insurance and/or FEMA in the South Basin Attenuator Project. Other significant capital amendments included in this report include an increase of $152,689 to property owner share revenue in the Pinellas New Main Service Lines Project, an increase of $127,644 in parking fund revenue in the Seminole Boat Launch Maintenance Project, and an increase of $283,250 of grant revenues in the Parks and Beautification Project. In the Special Program Fund, an increase of $5,428,078 is reflected at first quarter. Significant amendments include an increase of $1,637,567 in HUD revenue for the Home Art Program, as previously approved by the council. $40,000 is transferred from general fund for policing at special events. $290,686 for FEMA reimbursement revenues. $663,063 in contractual service revenue for police extra duty. $296,284 in opioid settlement funds we've received. $395,606 in fines and court proceeds for public safety programs, the lien foreclosure program, and the tree replacement program. $486,211 from the Juvenile Welfare Board. This is to fund 23-24 summer and after-school programs. And various amendments to special programs, which total $149,405. These reflect revenues received over the last few months for public safety assistance, foreclosure registry fees, donations, reimbursements, and special events revenues. And finally, there's a total of $1,469,257 transferred between existing special programs. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you, Kayleen. I sit on that opioid abatement funding advisory group for the county. And so we received $296,284 in opioid settlement funds. I thought that was all, we were all pooling it together in the county. And because we approved a firm to do a gap study to find out what are the best ways to spend that money. So that firm is starting to do the gap study, but it wasn't my understanding that these individual cities that were part of that opioid settlement were receiving funds themselves. Yeah.
I'll take that. So as part of the litigation involving the opioids, the litigation has been bifurcated, or perhaps you might even say trifurcated, because there are different lawsuits that have been filed by different entities, and the settlement funds are being distributed differently depending on who filed the lawsuit, who's the defendant in the lawsuit, when it was settled, who settled it. And so although this is all part of the general umbrella of opioid settlements, the funds that the county is presiding over actually are separate from the funds that the city has received. So it is not infringing on any of those funds that the Opioid Advisory Board is handling, but is a totally separate amount. This was caused by the Florida Attorney General's involvement in the case midway through. When those cases were filed initially, the Florida Attorney General's office was not involved in those cases. They got involved in the middle of the case. Long story short, we now have a couple different funding sources, so some of which are going to be realized as city revenue, as Kayleen is pointing out. Others are going to be handled by the county, which is the opioid funding.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So is this a one and done sum here that's close to 300,000?
I'm reluctant to say one and done. I mean, it's one and done as it pertains to the defendants who settled. There are still other cases outstanding, so we may receive additional revenues as part of that, but it is done as to those particular pharmacies, manufacturers, distributors who have settled. And
is this money earmarked for something in particular?
I don't believe so, not that I've been told of at this moment, unless
I mean, it's set aside in a special program, to be spent based on the restrictions of the funds, so.
Well, that's what I want to know. Are those restrictions of the funds that it has to deal with treatment for people, prevention, education? Is that 300,000 tied in some way to reducing deaths from opioids in Clearwater?
As Ms. Castle said, I mean, it is in a special project fund, so it should certainly be applied, at least in broad terms, to that type of purpose. I think the council has significant discretion in terms of how you'd like to put those monies. There could be a variety of city departments who could use those fundings to advance initiatives, but it should in some way be rationally related back to the purpose for which those funds were obtained.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Hearing no one, do we have,
We have ordinances to.
oh, I'm sorry, the ordinance.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This is ordinance number 9755-24, followed by 9756-24. Ordinance number 9755-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the operating budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, to reflect increases and decreases in revenues and expenditures for the General Fund, Special Development Fund, Special Program Fund, Water and Sewer Fund, Stormwater Fund, Solid Waste and Recycling Fund, Gas Fund, Air Park Fund, Marine Fund, Clearwater Harbor Marina Fund, Parking Fund, Administrative Services Fund, General Services Fund, Garage Fund, and Central Insurance Fund as provided herein, providing an effective date. Next up is ordinance number 9756-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the capital improvement budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, to reflect an increase of $6,351,013, providing an effective date.
Motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? 6.2.
Authorizing a purchase order to Frontier Inc. for internet service provision in an amount not to exceed $412,638 for the period March 1, 2024 through February 28, 2027 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.563(1)(d), non-competitive purchase, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Mayor, council members, Dan Mayer, IT Director. This item is before you today as we replace some of our ambition with the public Wi-Fi in the park. And we had some obligation to Frontier. We're using this opportunity to bolster our network security and resiliency by adding some additional connection to the internet, which we're highly dependent on for all phases of operational activity moving forward. So if there are any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions or concerns? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this? Did you fill out a card?
Oh, sorry, I'll fill out.
You can do that after you speak.
I'll fill that out. Just so I understand, my name is Michael Taylor. $412 for the next 3 years just for internet service, correct? So like, I have home internet at my house that costs me like, $120. And don't get me wrong, I get it, it's, citywide. But we're talking almost $500,000 for internet service for the next 3 years, dude. I mean, I wish I had $500,000 to have whatever, I don't know, are you talking like 5G? Are we talking how like, it sounds a little extravagant for almost $500,000. And that's, I don't even live here, and I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but maybe the citizens that live here would agree with it, but even for me, I'm helping put into that pot too. And, that's just what I feel. So.
Legitimate question. I'd be happy to answer that. It is a matter of scale. The city receives well over 1 million emails annually, hundreds of thousands, 300,000 roughly, on any given month during the busiest months down to a little bit less. Our major systems are now hosted in the cloud, so we don't save our critical systems in a closet in a building any longer due to concerns with hurricane and security. We are, to a large degree, entrusting large corporate entities to protect our data, Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco, and their offerings are no longer in the form of here's your license, go ahead and load it on your local computer. So as we have these critical systems, 55,000 customer accounts that are serviced every month, a lot of critical information, our financial information, transactions that go on, it's an enormous amount. We do a lot of video. We do more video both for public safety, traffic control and management. It is as uneasy as it makes some of us feel at times, the reality of how we are able to execute the level of service and public safety task that we hold dearly to, that we think defines our community as a very safe place and a very efficient place to live. So it is a matter of scale, and it is a lot of money. And it's not the smallest item we pay for on an annual basis. So I am empathetic, but I don't know another way.
Thank you. There are astronomical numbers, but when you consider, we just can't hook up to one system and have it for $100 a month. I appreciate everything that you folks do to keep everything up and running and to get all that information out there, including all the video that you do. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak to this? No? Okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.2.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 6.3.
Award a purchase order to Hose and Hydraulics, Inc. of Clearwater, Florida for hydraulic maintenance, repair, and parts in the annual not-to-exceed amount of $425,000 for 1 year, with 2 one-year renewal options pursuant to invitation to bid number 13-24, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon, Perry Comden, Fleet Manager. Authorization is requested to award ITB 1324 to Hose and Hydraulics, Inc., the lowest, most responsible bidder in accordance with the specifications, in an annual not-to-exceed amount for $425,000 for a 1-year term with 2 one-year renewal options.
Thank you. Questions? Councilmember Albritton.
Okay, I'll ask the same question. 416,000 or 25,000. Can you explain what that's for? Is it for vehicles? It's for what?
It's for the repair of hydraulic issues, whether it be hoses, pumps, cylinders on our equipment. And we also have expanded this contract to include other departments, and that's hence the larger number. So it covers all that.
So it's the fleet, everything to do with,
Hydraulics mostly, and they also provide a service where they come out and repair issues that are out, like if we have a truck break down in the street, they do that, and they also clean up the mess that comes with that. So.
now they used to be located in Clearwater. Are they still in Clearwater, or are they down?
No, they sold their property and moved further south. They moved into a bigger facility to take care of all this stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from here? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Hearing no one, do we have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 6.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good. Unanimous? Thank you. 6.4.
Authorize a purchase order to Alfred Benish and Company of Tampa, Florida, in the amount of $255,978 to prepare amendments to the city's community development code, implementing recommendations from the North Greenwood Community Redevelopment Area Plan per Code of Ordinance, Section 2.563, paren 1, paren C, piggyback, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon, J.V. Malka with Planning Development. You have before you a purchase order for the contract for Alfred Benish and Company. They're going to work with us to develop amendments to our community development code to encourage redevelopment, infill development, variety of housing types, while working to prevent displacement in the North Greenwood community. So the contract is going to work on what we've started with North Greenwood. We have the CRA plan in place. We did the design charrette on Martin Luther King corridor. Those were done in 2023. Both of those came with recommendations for us to try and create form-based regulations for the North Greenwood community. So we're proposing to use the piggyback provisions of our Code of Ordinances. Select the Benish team from the Ford Pinellas contract, professional planning support services. And we chose Benish because they have a unique group of consultants that we've put together. Benish is going to be responsible for the code writing portion of it, but they brought on Ennis Davis from the Community Planning Collaborative, and he's dealt with similar communities, and he's going to lead the community engagement portion of the project. And then we have Jennifer Kraus and John Anderson. They're going to team up for what we call the Game of Zones. I'll tell you about that in just a second. And then lastly, we have Juan Molara from Serbia. We brought them on to help create some graphics in the code to make it more easily to understand whatever standards we do create. So the contract is expected to run 11 months, not to exceed $255,978. It includes significant public engagement. We're going to have a tour of the community with the consultants. We'll have listening sessions with stakeholders in the community. We'll have a cultural mapping exercise. We'll have the Game of Zones, and then we'll have a finished up exercise meeting to let them know, okay, this is what we've come up with based on what we've heard from you. So now the Game of Zones. We wanted to tell you about that because it's kind of really unique. We're going to have one of those with the city staff and one of those with the public. And so what that is they're going to bring in some 3D models. We're going to have ADUs, we're going to have homes, duplexes, quadruplexes, small-scale commercial buildings, and we will have what they call a game board, which is essentially a big map of a block of an area in North Greenwood, and they'll be able to have physical blocks in their hands. So, okay, if I want to put a single-family house here with an ADU, does it going to fit? What kind of setbacks are we going to need? What kind of height do we need? What kind of parking do we need? And so that's going to allow the people in the community to visualize what could be done there, and then from that, the consultants will be able to come up with density, setbacks, height requirements, parking requirements, and some design standards to help create the code amendments for us. And so once the public engagement is complete, Banesh is going to wrap it up and create the code amendments for us, and they're going to use the recommendations from the CRA plan, the design charrette, and of course the input that we have from the community and city staff during this process. So I'm happy to answer your questions.
Questions? Councilmember Beckman.
I think this sounds exciting, sounds really fun, and I think the community's excited about it. You said it's going to take about 11 months. Do you expect the kickoff like in May-ish, or how soon?
We're hoping April.
In April?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then planning and development will be involved, or you guys will lead it with this contractor, but also the CRA staff will be involved?
Yes, we will have economic development, housing, as well as the CRA involved.
Great. Thank you. Sounds fantastic.
Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Hearing no one, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.4.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. 6.5.
Approve the purchase of excess property insurance, including bridges, boiler, and machinery, and terrorism coverages from April 1, 2024 through April 1, 2025, at the level of insurance provided for this in this agenda item, in a not-to-exceed amount of $6,020,000, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, council members. As stated, request approval for our annual renewal for our excess property coverage, which will include bridges, our equipment breakdown for boiler and machinery, and our terrorism coverages. That will be April 1, 2024 through April 1, 2025, and not to exceed $6,020,000. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Councilmember Albritton.
So I enjoyed the 101s with you regarding our insurance rates. They're going up like everybody's else.
Yes.
But what I took away from that meeting that I thought was the biggest point that you made was mostly after we have a hurricane or something, you have a spike in the insurance rates, but they do come down. And I think that was, everybody should know that's looking at their homeowners' insurance rates, that that's why we're doing it in a year, because then we'll look at it again as it's coming down, maybe get a better rate. But the last time, I think it was, we had a hurricane, it jumped up, and then it came back down, kind of leveled off, so that was good.
So what we can't control are storms, obviously, and our rates typically double is the pattern we've seen post-Katrina, and we saw that typically after Ian. The market is improving for this year's proposal. We're hearing that in the media. We're hearing that our elected officials are trying to address property insurance on the private side. But what we're seeing is more insurers are coming into the market and writing capacity for our market, for especially the public sector. Our rate, the only reason our rate didn't decrease even more is, as we discussed, we have significantly increased our property valuation at just over $1 billion in property assets, which is partly going to help us in the years to come because we'll have less volatile premiums by providing appraisals every year to give us a true picture of what our values are. The other, as we all know, we had a major loss in this building, and we had a loss from Ian, which was close to the tune of $10 million in incurred or paid out insurance claims. So those two factors kind of kept us elevated, but didn't change the fact that the market is improving and rates will be coming down. And we hope to follow those patterns. So years to come, we return to a more normal market, hopefully.
And the city's making progress in trying to get our FEMA rates down as well, over using ordinances and everything to get a better rate for them.
My understanding is we're making great progress on the emergency management side with our FEMA planning, and we hope to continue that, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public wishes to speak to this? Hearing no one, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.5.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. 6.6.
Ratify and confirm a payment to ServPro of Largo in the amount of $136,552.32 for preventative repairs and maintenance on the sprinkler system at the main library.
So, again, a request to ratify and confirm amount for ServPro Largo of $136,552.32. This primarily is for the repair work that was found for all the damaged pipes that weren't part of the loss that we saw in this building on September 6th. We're talking in excess of maybe 30 to 40 pipe locations that were corroded, that while the building was under construction, we went ahead and used our contracted vendor, Centos, to go ahead and make those repairs, do the inspections, and bring the pipes that were behind the walls that could have the same loss that we experienced in the building. So that was necessary, but it cannot be paid under the risk insurance claim side, so it has to go to repairs and maintenance. And the easiest way to do that was to bring it to a ratify and confirm today, but that will go to buildings and maintenance to pay.
How much did the insurance company pay to?
We're not
fix this?
quite total. I'll have to come back again and visit you, but we're north of 6.2 right now, which is what was the number we came about 30 days after the loss. And the guesstimate, and professional guesstimate at that time for all the appraisers and adjusters, was that we might hit that number, but we're not far off. I don't want to make a guesstimate here, but I don't think it's more than $100,000 to $200,000 more than that initial number. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to wrap that up in the month of April. And out of pocket for the city, with the repairs and maintenance accepted from that, we still only out of pocket for the deductible of $100,000.
Well, considering what we just went through, this is money well spent.
Right. So just as a note to plug, we never make money off of insurance, but when we need it, we certainly, we could look at the $10 million in claims to date in the last couple of years as a return of premium for the 3 prior years. So it's not a true ROI, but when we need it, and it was there for us this time.
Councilmember Beckman.
Thanks. I have just a question on, so we're going to pay ServPro of Largo to repair these pipes, repair and maintenance on the sprinkler system that wasn't part of the break. But did we have a regular inspection or maintenance schedule that would keep an eye on all those pipes in there, or is?
So the way, and I'm not a pipe inspector, but when they can see the pipes, when it's visibly exposed, they visibly check the pipes when they're in here, checking the sprinkler heads and doing the systems checks that they do, whatever the regular maintenance schedule is. If they happen to see like dry water stains on the ceiling tiles and stuff like that, they also pull those back and investigate those to see where the leak is coming from. Most of the 3rd floor ceiling, which is the 4th floor ceiling, is 2/3 of that ceiling is drywall, so you can't see behind that.
So you can't snake something through like we do IT
They wouldn't do
cords
that on an annual inspection unless there was something to tell them that those pipes or that there was a leak present. So fortuitous in the sense we had a loss that allowed us to find out that there was other problems. That was probably due to the construction back when the building was built, but where we were way past recovering that under subrogation under the law for that.
Okay.
So fortunate that we were able to check at the time to make sure that there wasn't other problems. But we are also looking, building maintenance is also scheduling Cintas, that's our contractor that does this work for the city, to also check buildings of similar age for these problems so that we won't find ourselves in another building when we may be able to prevent that loss.
Right. I mean, I think that's the question is
Right.
asset management, maintenance, and is it better to try to figure out if we inspect once a year, whatever we can do to prevent that?
And we're paying ServPro because they were the general contractor. They were here 2 hours after the call on September 6th. They turned out to be a great partner in resolving our loss and getting the building back in a very quick manner. But we did use the contracted vendor Cintas for those repairs and services.
Anyone from the public wish to speak to this?
Vice Mayor Bunker, council members, Mr. Margolis. Initially, I wasn't going to speak to this issue at all. However, having worked in a number of buildings that have sprinkler systems in the past, some questions that I guess I've not heard answered or comments made about was, number one, was it a wet or dry system? Number two, inspections tell me whether or not the sprinkler heads are appropriate. My concern for pipe breaks is normally where there are substantial weather conditions that affect the movement of the water, if it's a wet system, and the possibility that those pipes could freeze and therefore break. So I'm a little bit amazed that in our wonderful climate here, that we would have a breakage of pipes, I presume, or connections that would cause so much damage and yet not have a shut-off availability to it that could be readily notified to some person that the system has gone off, an alarm system, et cetera, which would bring an immediate response, I presume, from firefighters who would believe that if the sprinkler system has gone off, if that's what we're talking about, that there may be a fire in place. So the amount of time and the amount of water that therefore was able to get into the building, provide damages to the tune of, I guess it sounds like $6 million, sort of takes me aback as both a private citizen and as a business owner who's had experience with this very factor in my past businesses. So my issue is, it's not just about inspection. Was this system built poorly enough that pipes in the wall in a warm condition, which we are down here, could have this kind of disastrous break without there being a fundamental, potentially, construction issue that was at hand? And I would hope that the city is doing a more thorough investigation as to what caused this, why it happened, and how it could be prevented in the future. And with that, I will just leave those comments to the council and to the city management. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Very, very good points. Can you speak to that?
I can't speak to all of those questions, but I can bring back, I think that would be a question to our fire prevention service, Cintas, to speak on some of those issues, especially related to weather. But all these systems were enclosed in a climate-controlled building. My understanding is it's not a sprinkler head that broke, but actually the connector that the sprinkler pipe comes down from the main pipe. These systems are under significant pressure. I can help dispel some of the question about how long the system did run before our maintenance team was able to turn off the system. It was 10 minutes. So a lot of water can come out in 10 minutes, but understand it wasn't on the first floor, it was on the 4th floor. So water came down 3 floors to even affect this chamber. So water, if it goes downhill, we can't stop it. And it went into every pipe chase and crack in the building that he could find. So the fire department and maintenance responded within that 10-minute time frame and did turn the water off. We were fortunate that it didn't happen after hours. The failure happened in the dialer, that the system did report out to the monitoring company. The monitoring company has since changed their system to a cellular dialer. But again, I can't speak to all the technical expertise on that, but it wasn't a failure of our monitoring in the building, and it was a corrosive pipe. Pipes corrode under water pressure. We do have an outdoor air HVAC system in the building. I don't know to what extent that humidity might have impacted the pipes, but that's a question for a metallurgist and a scientist of that background and the fire prevention service folks.
Yes, Councilmember Albert.
So you told me before, because that was my question when we were talking.
Right.
I was under the understanding that it was a while. You said 10 minutes, and I'm like, wow. Did you tell me 15,000 gallons of water came out in 10 minutes?
It's a rough science because, you know, the pressure and the size of the pipe, the best estimate we've been given is between 10 and 15,000 gallons.
It's like a swimming pool
Which,
on the...
again, outdoors in our stormwater is not a lot of water. Inside the building, it's a lot of water.
Sure, yeah.
And there's just not, you know, it's no easy way to describe that. Our contractors have, you know, shared with the team that was working with them throughout this process that this is not uncommon in a commercial building when a pipe and the fire sprinkler system goes. And that while this sounds like a lot of money, it's in the ballpark of what they tend to see. And now that's not much of a guarantee, but I just give you the information that was provided to me throughout the process.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank-
Thank you.
Thanks.
So do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. 6.7.
Approve a locally funded agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Clearwater to fund $750,000 for the construction of State Road 60, Gulf to Bay Boulevard, Courtney Campbell Causeway, pedestrian overpass from Courtney Campbell Trail to Bayshore Trail, and approve a maintenance memorandum of agreement for the maintenance and aesthetic features of the State Road 60, Gulf to Bay Boulevard, Courtney Campbell Causeway pedestrian overpass bridge from Courtney Campbell Trail to Bayshore Trail, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, council members. The item before you today really dates back to 2016 when the city approved supporting Sun Trail funding to construct the Courtney Campbell pedestrian bridge. And basically at the same time the city manager transferred, we gave them a right-of-way to FDOT so that they could in fact build that pedestrian bridge. The city desired to enhance the project by $1 million for bridge aesthetics. In February 22, the council approved $250,000 for the design of the aesthetics, and now FDOT is requesting the additional $750,000 to construct the bridge with a locally funded agreement between the city and FDOT. Construction is scheduled to begin this August with completion somewhere around January 2026. Coupled with this funding agreement is also the requested approval of the memorandum of agreement is for the maintenance of the aesthetic features of the bridge. Since the city currently maintains both trails, the Bayshore Trail and also the Courtney Campbell Trail, we have staff members that are there that can actually maintain this trail as well, so there'll not be any additional costs there. The cost of the increase will be approximately $4,800 a year for the utilities that we have on the lighting there. Funding is available in our bicycle paths and bridges CIP 93272. Available to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Councilmember Albritton.
Okay, I remember a couple of years ago talking about this, and the pedestrian bridge was fully funded, but we wanted to make changes because we didn't want the solid wall on one side, and so that's what the $1 million for is to, but I couldn't remember, is there an ADA access, one ADA access ramp that comes down off of that? Or two?
There are two.
One in each direction?
That is correct,
Really?
yes.
Okay.
And then, of course, one across from the Bay Shore Trail, obviously. goes on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
They would be stuck up there if there was only one.
Huh?
They'd be stuck up there if there was only one.
No, I mean, both directions, like east and west on the other side of the road.
Oh,
That is correct. Rather than having to go all the way, whichever direction you're coming from, you'd have to walk all the way down or wheelchair down and come back up. It is in both sides. And you meet in the middle and you go across. I apologize, I don't have a picture for you, but certainly can get one for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's a long time coming, and I'm happy to see it moving forward.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Let's see.
anyone to speak?
I'm sorry?
Members of the public?
Members of the public, that's what I was thinking. Anyone wish to speak on this? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. 6.8.
Authorize an increase and an extension to purchase order with Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company doing business as Goodyear Commercial Tires and Service Center and Monroe, Inc. for the purchase of Goodyear tire products and services for city motorized equipment in a cumulative not to exceed amount of $200,000, bringing the total amount to $870,000 and extend through June 30, 2024, pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.563, Paren 1, Paren C, piggyback or cooperative purchasing, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Perry Collins, Fleet Manager. General Services requesting authorization to increase our current purchase order by $200,000 and a new total of $870,000, and extend this through June 30th of 2024, when the state of Florida contract expires, to be replaced by a new one.
Councilmember Teixeira.
Can you clarify what the extra $200,000 is? It just increased rates, more vehicles? If you could just clarify that.
It's the extension of the contract, and that's to cover us for that extension,
Which is an extra,
the $200,000, till June 2024.
okay,
6 months?
an extra 6
Yeah.
months.
June 30th.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this?
My name's Mike Taylor. How many vehicles do you have in working order in the
It's not a question and answer, Terry. You don't have to do that. It's not a question and answer. Just get back and let him have his 3 minutes.
Oh, all right, well, just out of, doing simple math out of my head, let's just say $200 a tire, four tires, and then you multiply that by 1,000 cars, right? Let's just say you have 1,000 cars. I don't know, that's why I was trying to figure it out. Maybe this is justified. But if you have less than 1,000 cars and it's $200 a tire, you're already at $800,000 at that number. And, once again, are we doing a NASCAR race, or are we bringing NASCAR here? That's why we need new tires. I mean, I'm just kind of curious. Like, these are big numbers. This is almost $1 million. $1 million for tires, and this only goes for the next 3 months. We're almost through the end of March, April, May, June. We're talking like 3 months right now, and you want another $200K for 3 months? I mean, if y'all are gonna vote how you vote, and I get it, it's just, some of these people really need to start doing math and start understanding where this money's going. Like, I get, I wish I would've spoke on the last one, I get the bridge, but, I mean, $200K for 3 months for some tires? I mean, even NASCAR drivers don't go through that many tires, so, but,
I understand your concern, Mr. Taylor. I'm assuming we're also dealing with fire trucks, garbage trucks? Every huge vehicle we have?
It's all the equipment.
Yeah,
And this contract was from 2019, hence the large total amount.
yeah.
And tires have gotten more expensive, and they're going to continue to rise.
Vice Mayor, if I may also.
Yes.
Dan
Mr.
Slaughter,
Slaughter.
Assistant City Manager. I want to make sure we're clear. We're not adding $200,000 into an existing contract. Okay, this contract started in 2019. It expired end of March, or it's going to expire end of March. So this $200,000 is to fund us for the next 3 months of operation. You take the $890,000 divided by 4, you're about there at the same amount of money. The tires, as you pointed out, it's not the ones that he's talking about that we use at NASCAR. It's the ones that we use for like the dump trucks, the fire trucks. They're very costly and expensive. And so this doesn't also indicate that he's going to expend it all. It's just the availability to expend it should we need it in the next 3 months.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. 6.9.
Award invitation to bid 03-24 surplus of Clearwater gas system propane customer and assets. Approve an assets purchase agreement with Suburban Propane LP of Whippany, New Jersey in the amount of $4,250,000 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good afternoon, Brian Langgill, Executive Director for Clearwater Gas System. Well, I have good news for you. I have a contract here for you to approve for the sale of our propane customers and assets. We did have one-on-ones with this last year where we were talking about the profitability of our propane operations, and it was decided that we would list it for sale. Well, first we did a business valuation, which we hired Raftellus to do that. They do our natural gas rate studies for us as well. So they did a evaluation of the business of our 2,000 customers on propane and came in at $2.4 million. And at that point, we decided to go ahead and list it for sale and doing an invitation to bid document. And we received responses in November of last year, and Suburban came in as the highest, most responsive bidder at $4.25 million, actually. So they were almost $2 million higher than what the actual business valuation was. So we were very happy with that. Suburban Propane is local here. They have about 22,000 customers, in the area. So they're significantly larger than what we are, about over 10 times the size. So they have a lot more, customer base to spread all of their overhead costs over. So in comparison to our natural gas utility, where we serve over 31,000 customers, and in the 2 counties, and we are growing that business as well. Whereas propane, we were really just steady at the 2,000 customer level for the last 10 to 15 years. So we feel like this is a good decision to go ahead and move forward with this sale. I will say that all of our employees that are in the propane operations all have jobs still. We still need to hire more staff on top of it as well, but they're all going to convert over to our natural gas operations, and some even got to pick where they wanted to go. So that was a good option for them, the best that we could hope for in this situation here, because we never want to, sell off things and, relocate people and have them, have to do different jobs. But I think overall it's going to work very well. So,
Thank you. That was the one question I had.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that the employees were still employed.
oh, absolutely.
Any other questions? Councilmember Alberton.
My kudos to you for this great contract. I mean, I'm really glad it went to Suburban and we got more than the valuation. And they also are moving the tanks too, right?
Yes, they are. That was the other item that was in the bid, as far as moving those 30,000 gallon tanks at our facility, which could cost a couple $100,000 or more. They're going to do that on their dime, so we do not have to pay for that.
Great.
I know
Thank
we
you.
did talk about that in the one-on-ones.
Councilmember Peckman.
Thank you. So this is very good news. Like my peers, I'm super happy that all of our employees are staying with us or will not lose any jobs. I just had a question. Can you comment at all about the $2.4 million in valuation and the $4.25 million bid? Why that large gap?
Well, yeah, it was interesting to see that. We thought that we would see a little higher than the business valuation, because it normally is pretty conservative there. And because what Raftellus did is they took our assets and basically summed all that up and applied a depreciation factor to it. And then they also looked at a couple of other ways that they did the valuation, and they all were converging to that $2.4 million range. What that doesn't take into account is just a business that's already in the area that has a customer base of well over 10 times what we have right now serving, where honestly we probably took those customers from them 30 years ago, and so they definitely want those back. You know, they have a need for that, and you know, they see their business continuing to grow, and like I said, they have the customer base already like we have on our natural gas side. So I think it's a win-win situation.
I just think as we do valuations, or if we, you know, whatever we do going forward, that we have real confidence in who's giving us the numbers. Because if we're making financial decisions or planning for budget things, and this is such a wide gap, you know, you want to be confident in who's giving you the valuation of your assets. And then the other thing I wanted to know is, you're very confident that this is the number we're going to get, 4.25 million, that there's no due diligence or no hidden what if or discovery or things like that?
Yeah, they do put that in the agreement where if they see any kind of discrepancies that might come up between now and the closing date, which will take place in early April, that there could be some type of renegotiation or whatnot. We've done a lot of customer, compiling of the customer data and the number of customers, and it's right within line with what we put in our bid documents when we did the valuation. So I'm not seeing that discrepancy, certainly within the margin of error there where we were, when we initially did that first, bid out for the customers.
Okay. And then Councilmember Albritton asked about the tanks being moved. What else can we, so how is it going to change the gas department over there off Myrtle? Is it going to look a lot different in the back are you going to have a lot more property that's going to be used for other things, or?
So what we want to do with that property, it's pretty large there, that area there where we could repurpose it. And so what our plan is to do is to use it for natural gas field training outside, because we don't have anything right now where we can do any type of outdoor field training other than at customer sites. So we really need that, especially with onboarding new employees. Employees don't stay as long as they used to, and so we need to have that accelerated training and have that in-house versus having to do it at another location or remotely.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? No? Hearing no one, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And we're down to the home stretch, but we are going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll be back. All right, we're back in session for the March 18th, 2024 City Council meeting, and we are at 6.10.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This is an employment lawsuit retaining outside counsel. Because it's active litigation, I don't want to say too much beyond what's in the item, but happy to discuss through one-on-one. I certainly have budgeted funds available.
Appreciate that. Any questions, concerns?
So just for public clarification, the agenda item is 610, authorize the city attorney to retain the services of Alan Norton and Blue to defend the city in the employment lawsuit filed by a former employee, just so that everybody's clear.
Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 6.10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. And now it's time for citizens to be heard. Please step up to the podium and state your name. For the public record, you have 3 minutes to speak on a subject that is not on today's agenda.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, I'm Bill Johnson. I do have a card, I'll give it to her. I'm just here to say thank you. Several things. First thing, thank you for the Courtney Campbell Trail Bridge and the project, and that's moving forward. That's a journey that we started in '98, and it's still getting better every year. This last weekend, I visited the Market Marie in Coachman Park. It was the first time I've been to that, and it was lots of fun, and I'm going to be back fairly frequently. The third item is I'd like to thank Rebecca Mulder in the Code Enforcement Department and Inspector Espinosa for the recent enforcement actions at 2171 Beecher. It's been a long time problem, as indicated on the picture, and it's been exasperated by some of the wind storms that we've had, which is making it more of a eyesore for that neighborhood. Also want to thank the staff for assisting in the proposed project coming to the Community Development Board this Thursday. It's at 1510 Berry. It's another long-time existing problem property. I think it goes back to 2017. And it's also a blight on the community. It's an old office park that has been inhabited by people. It's now fenced, but it looks terrible, and it's in an area just by where the old Y used to be off of Highland. So I would remind you that this council abated $400,000 worth of fines on that property because they were going to fix it up and get it opening about 6 months ago. So hopefully this will actually come to fruition, and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Mr. Haluba, and I aggravate the thin-skinned Mayor Brian Augst. Even if he doesn't bother to show up. First Amendment protects all respective actions to suppress free speech by all branches of the government, something I think is sorely forgotten in this group. No matter how rude or inappropriate anyone may find that free speech, it's free speech and it's guaranteed. Federal, state, local governments are barred from restrictive actions like the Augst Rule 15. When the city council appointed Ongst on April 11th of last year, they ignored the city charter rules, and that's what we get. Ongst at that time stated in part, "I don't owe anybody anything." But he did swear to uphold the Constitution, which he did not and is not doing. First Amendment rules protect all forms of speech: science, religion, morality, social issues, art displays, such as words or depictions on clothing. It even protects personal gossip. Perhaps Ongst has heard that, Mr. Hibbard may be looking for a new golfing buddy. Maybe Mr. Ongst will get a hole-in-one. Let's hope he doesn't end up the one in the hole. Free speech must be defended and upheld no matter what.
Thank you, Mr. Haluba. Mr. Taylor.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? My name is Michael Taylor. I drove 4 hours from Port St. Lucie just to be here. Hey, Mr. Slaughter. Hey, can you pay attention for just 3 minutes, dude? For 3 minutes. Honestly, come on, dude. For 3 minutes, this guy's gonna sit there and read his notes. That's just a disrespect that I've gotten numerous times. Numerous. And unfortunately, the mayor's not here. Yandy, that tyrant's not here today. But I do have somebody here that I do want to talk to. Mr. Margolis, how you doing, buddy? I hope everything is well. I like the haircut. You were talking about the waterways, right? You were like, oh, we can't restrict the waterways in certain, these rules. Well, don't we have a First Amendment? Aren't there rules? Congress is the only place that can change the First Amendment, Congress. But here I am, wearing my shirt, and if Mr. Unks was here, he'd be saying something about my shirt. And Slaughter, you're on my shirt too, man. Coloring book Slaughter. Look at you, reading your coloring book again today. I'm stoked about it, man. It's amazing how the disrespect, just like your officers disrespected me on the beach and disrespected Mr. Haluba by the guy that's over here in the corner, Officer Stiff, that I've always tried to be cool with, but, after watching what he did, he swore an oath to defend Mr. Haluba's rights. He swore an oath, just like everyone up here. If you're a sworn official, you swore an oath to defend that man's rights. My Second Amendment right. Everyone up here that swore an oath was sworn to defend my rights. And all it seems that happens is they get trampled on every time we come here. But because the tyrant, the friggin' dictator, Mr. Ongst ain't here today, and I hope he's watching. Hi, Mr. Ongst. Hope you're seeing me. I love you. I miss you. Caught him. I love you, Mr. Ongst. I can't wait to see you on your last day too, bud. But it's just, I keep coming back here month after month, month after month. I serve you, I literally hand you an intent to sue, and you have 30 days on that. There's an intent to sue for a lot of you, and that's going to be put on the agenda too, because I promise you, for $404 and me getting a process server, which I actually have, that they're just waiting for me to file it, and they're going to come here, and we're all going to show up, and we're going to serve you right on live stream. Because I'm telling you, if you don't want to acknowledge this, take it. It's real. I'm not playing with you about this First Amendment stuff. The Second Amendment might have had a chance, but this first one, you don't.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. Stop being a tyrant, you freaking goofball, reading your coloring book. There you go.
Hi, my name is James. I'm a concerned citizen here from some things I've seen on the internet, like a lot of people. And first of all, I want to say thank you very much for not closing down public comment. I've been to other municipalities
that have simply voted to restrict public comment during the city council meetings. So thank you very much for not doing that. I don't know if it's within your authority to do that. If it is, thanks. If not, then thank you anyway. Speaking earlier of all the stuff that we talked about, the arts, the improvements and all that stuff, what good is any of that if we are not free? If we did not have the inalienable rights that were enshrined in our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, what difference does it make if we have wonderful waterways that either are or not used for wakeboard practice, that we have bridges that are aesthetically pleasing or not? What difference does any of that make if we are not free? I would argue that the first job of the city council is to ensure that individual liberties and the freedom of the people of America that would reside within the boundaries of your municipality are 100% protected and insured. And beyond that, then if there's other nice things we can do, build libraries and provide for education, orderly flow of traffic, whatever else there is, then those are things that are nice. But if there's not freedom, if people are not free from unreasonable search and seizure, from having their right to speak violated, and I would even argue their right to keep and bear arms violated, what difference does it make? So I would hope that people would put that in their mind to think about that when it comes time to make rules, make law or ordinances or whatever else it happens to be. And the only other thing I'd like to say too is please consider if there are funds that are coming back into the municipality, directly putting those back into the pockets of the taxpayers who have already paid for a lot of the things that are particularly the natural gas stuff and whatever else, opioid money's coming back in, those kinds of things. Please consider simply putting it back into the taxpayers, not by giving them something else, not by spending it somewhere else, not by putting something else, another item or another facility or something, but simply give it back to them. And if you want it back, then ask for it back. They've already given it to you once. You now have a resource that you're getting back. Ask them for it again. Like, okay, we gave you the money back from this. Now, could we please have a tax increase, or would you vote us a tax increase so that we could build something else or do something else for you, as opposed to just, oh, look, there's some money, we'll take it and we'll spend it somewhere else. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Did you fill out a card? Yes, sir. Thank you.
First of all, amen to the prayer. Thank you for doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I really appreciate that. I know a lot of people do. And also thank you for your service. I'm sure it's a thankless job. I'm here to speak today about FLD 2023-11023. It was passed by I will repeat it again, FLD, Frank Larry David 2023-11023, has to do with the commercial docks on Stevenson Creek. I believe the CDB board or the Community Development Board, their process is broken. I know we're not going to be able to fix it today. It might take weeks, months, or years, but they approved this the permit last meeting, February 20th. I had to be out of town. I called Melissa Houck Baker. She assured me that it was going to be pulled off of the consent agenda. She did not tell me that it's going to be put back on in 5 minutes, discussed, and passed. They had no reports from the EPA, no reports from Save the Manatee, no reports from the county, no reports from Army Corps of Engineer. Their lawyer happened to be the son of the mayor. I don't know if that's an influence or not. You all appoint
the members of that board, and, you know, they didn't listen to us. I wasn't there, but I wrote an email, and a lot of people complained. They said, well, you know, we're not experts. You know, we don't have letters behind our name. We only live on the creek. We know that creek better than anybody here, better than anybody here with the CDB. We see it day and night. We see the birds, we see the manatees, the dolphins, the bald eagles, all manner of wildlife, and also speeding boaters, but that's another issue. So their policy is not, I would imagine it's probably a city policy. It's only a 10-day notice. We didn't find out about it, most people in the neighborhood, 5 days before the meeting. The staff report meeting was not available until 5 days before the meeting. And then the process of who they make aware of the issue, it's only the adjacent property, even though everybody up and down the creek are going to be exposed to this tragedy if it's built. And speaking of the wake zone and all that, if this dock is passed, we're going to have to really complain about it. And
Sure.
I'm retired, and I can write a lot of letters to the state, and everybody will get that.
Thank you for
wake
your
zone
comments.
passed.
There's going to be a meeting at 4:30 by where the docks are
Yes.
supposed to be in the park. I'll probably see you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Yep. All right, well, let's go on to the city manager.
North Beach update.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, council members. Was here to provide an update on the North Beach stormwater issues that are going on. So this will, some of these are much longer terms, so unfortunately we won't necessarily be able to make a lot of progress between each of the sessions. So some of the upfront stuff I've got a little bit of a update on. We did get the tidal valve report in from the manufacturer's rep. We've met with the contractor out there. We've notified them of some of the corrections they need to make, which includes turning a couple of the tidal valves to the proper position. We're getting some seepage through, so they need to go back around and seal. There's some cleaning and a couple other minor things they need to take to. So we're just waiting on their feedback coming back. There's also 2 tidal valves that still need to be installed. And those tidal valves, we expressed some of the concerns with the initial, so they're looking at that plus a couple of items with the valves themselves. We've still been continuing some of the cleaning and inspection that's been going on out there. From our standpoint, we only have 2 vac trucks that do a lot of the cleaning. One of those has been down. We haven't been able to get parts in. The manufacturer's got a backlog, so we're down to 1. So we have had to kind of bounce that truck across the city. We can't keep it just dedicated out there on the beach. So we haven't made as much progress with that as we want. They're continuing to get out there as they can. With the contract that was approved for the maintenance, we are investigating getting the contractor out there to see if we can't pick up some of that pace. One thing we continue to ask is if the residents have got their contractors out there working, or they see their neighbor's contractor and they're dumping something into our storm drains, if they will please address that. It costs us so much more money to go in there and pull that out. Plus, that's what impacts some of those flows. We did have the kickoff, so on the seawall ordinance and looking at the elevation conversation, we had that kickoff with the contractor that will be helping with some of that. Again, that's a long term, so that's gonna be a long time effort. We've also met with the engineer that'll be doing the lift stations, so we're continuing to refine a little bit of the effort for those permanent lift stations that would go out there. Part of it just dealing with the swift mud conversations and some of the
environmental requirements that go with that. In addition, public utilities, we've been working with them a little bit. The auto flushers that are out there, that is part of the issue, is those dump their daily water to deal with the potable water side. So public utilities is looking at, can they push it to another location? So they're having some conversations with the state about potentially pushing that water out, and if they can discharge it at the state park, that would be great, because it's not within some of our communities out there. They're also investigating if they can dechlorinate so that we can discharge immediately instead of having to surface flow it, as well as looking at, can they increase some of the chlorine at some other spots to not, to keep that residual chlorine up a little bit higher. So they're working with us. They understand the challenges we have. So we're kind of working across departments on some of that. So with that, that was the key ones. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Anyone?
Yeah, I do.
Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm looking forward a little bit to Wednesday. There's, at the EAB meeting, there's the vulnerability study that's going to be discussed, and it's pretty dense. Are you going to be at that meeting? Or, okay, because I think they go hand in hand, that whole.
And
okay.
they validated, what you'll see on that is one of the scenarios kind of validated what we're seeing out there.
Okay.
So they've worked good together.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. So
Councilmember Albritton.
where is that, the end of the potable water line that you have to blow off? Where is that exactly located? Is that right at Carlwell?
So there's a couple of them. One of them is directly at Carluel, El Dorado, and Bruce, where they come together by where that triangle
Oh, yeah.
is. So there's one of them. It's actually located in that triangle.
That's why
Then-
that's always wet there.
Correct. So there's two problems that are out there. So there's, that's feeding to it. And then the other is, there was some of the repaving effort that was done as they went back in and did some of the repaving. The grades are so slight in that area because the distance, it's so flat in the distance that just the minor deviations that they've got have kind of compounded some of the flooding that's over there. So we're working on that with public utilities also. So our surveyors are out there to take it and see if we can't kind of fine tune those grades just a little bit better.
And what exactly are they doing on Island Estates? Is that sewer line or potable water lines?
Sewer. That'd be wastewater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the pipelining that the pipe bursting that we discussed earlier this last, I guess, turn of the year.
Seems like they're doing it all on all the streets out there, I guess.
Yeah, and the utilities will bring in an item shortly that'll actually be lining to go along with that item for some other particular areas where they can't do the pipe bursting, but they're doing the pipe bursting first.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
There we go.
This way.
Just an FYI that we did just get notification that EAB meeting might be canceled due to lack of a quorum. So I wanted to get that information because I know we just had that, and I got an email that says that they do not have a quorum.
So what the plan is, the staff is going to work with public communications, renotice it not as a meeting, but more as a community forum or a staff presentation. And so the presentation will continue, but it will no longer involve the actual board.
Okay. And that presentation will be given to the council too at some point, wouldn't
I would
it?
imagine, I don't know, that
Yes.
would be a question for Cassie for staff.
Yes, yes, ma'am, that is the plan. It does have a requirement for us to do a public meeting as well, which is why we wanted to do a DAB.
Okay,
Very
great.
good. Thank you. Mr. Albritton, I'm sorry, Mr. Margolis, rather.
Nothing at this time.
All right. Well, Councilmember Beckman, you had something under
I do.
the new items?
I do, under the sign ordinance. So, yep. So I had asked late last year if we could talk about the sign ordinance sometime in the first quarter of this year. And so here we are, and we're not really discussing the sign ordinance, but what I wanted to do was share with you some of my concerns that I've had since being elected and continue to hear from small businesses. And one of the biggest learnings I've had in working here for 4 years is that, our planning and development department takes on huge responsibilities that touch so many different areas of things that make our city work, residents as well as businesses, building, comprehensive plan, all that stuff. And I know that they continue to be significantly understaffed. And where, part of discussing this today is to share some of my concerns and get consensus that it's something that we need to look at sooner rather than later. But in looking at the Planning and Development Department, they have community development code amendments that they're working on. They're researching items, for example, the artificial turf subject that we've talked about earlier, mobile vending, ADUs, we gave them feedback on that for ordinances, the North Greenwood amendments, street vendors, comprehensive plan, all that stuff. So certainly they've got a lot, and whether or not we look comprehensively at the sign ordinance and the different sections of the code that relate to signs. And one of the comments I got from our city manager was, well, what part of the sign ordinance do you want us to look at? Well, it's 15 pages long. It's incredibly, deep. And so what I wanted to do was just read to you this. The opening part is a little bit telling, and it's been a number of years before most of these have been updated. But under general principles, the very opening of this Division 18 of signs, that says, since 1985, the Florida statutes have required that municipalities enact land development regulations that regulate signage. The city is a resort community on the west coast of the state with more than 5 miles of beaches on the Gulf of Mexico. This city has an economic base which relies heavily on tourism in order to preserve the city as a desirable community in which to live, vacation, and do business. A pleasing, visually attractive urban environment is of foremost importance. The regulation of signs within the city is a highly contributive means by which to achieve this desired end, a visually attractive urban environment. These sign regulations are prepared with the intent of enhancing the urban environment and promoting the continued well-being of the city. The enhancement of the visual environment is critical to a community's image and its continued presence as a tourist destination, and the sign control principles set forth herein create a sense of character and ambiance that distinguishes the city as one with a commitment to maintaining and improving an attractive environment. So in all those words, under general principles, business is mentioned once. And I would say we can have both. We can have an attractive, pleasing environment that welcomes our tourists, that keeps our residents safe and all that, but we need to be more business friendly. And we need to look at our sign ordinance in order to help our small businesses be successful. One of the things we've got 24 restrictions that follow after that kind of preamble. And then there are literally hundreds and hundreds of parameters and requirements and descriptors and limitations articulated. And I believe it is overly restrictive and far from business friendly. We do want more businesses, not only in our downtown and in our North Greenwood CRA, but I think residents want a walkable community where they can walk to a coffee shop or a bakery or a restaurant or, a craft store or whatever. I mean, they just want more walkability rather than having to get in their car and go to some, more retail establishment destination. So I think it really does need to be looked at. I feel for the Planning and Development Department. The list of things that I read through are certainly priorities and might rise to a higher level, but I don't want this to slip through the cracks. I think it really is time for, a look at being, how business-friendly are we and how flexible are we? I remember when we talked up here about LED lighting, and, Councilmember Teixeira talked about small businesses that just need the help of some kind of visual, whether it's lighting. And when we have the problem of too many businesses and every storefront is filled, then maybe we can go back and look at tightening some other things up. But I just wanted to mention that I think it really is important, and it's something I've been hearing consistently, and just, wanted your feedback on it. No, they have questions.
Yes, Councilmember Teixeira.
I also agree as a small business owner. I know that the Downtown Merchants Association was very concerned about that as well many years ago, and especially when we had 16% of the windows could only be used for signage, and we were, happy to get to 25%. But I have been on record saying that sometimes I feel aesthetics is being prioritized over businesses' ability to survive. Mm-hmm. And there should be a balance. And I think that the business community should be part of that discussion, should be part of that planning. You did make a good point. Our department is overworked. And so my question is, how do I prioritize all that? But the signage issue has been going on for a long time. And I believe that promoting small businesses have a higher incidence of failure. And they need that much more help in self-promotion. And signage is a big key in that. So I agree. I do think it's a very important thing to work on. I also have we always joke around, but this pet peeve about signage, like if you have a wine bar, you can't paint a wine glass. So if you're an aquarium, you can't have a painting of a dolphin. I think I can't rationalize that. So I agree. I think we should look at it. I would just like to kind of wonder how we prioritize that with staff. I'd like to have that discussion.
Councilmember Albertson.
Well, I tell you, this discussion has been going on for 20 years. I know back in 2011 when I was on the business task force, which Mayor Hibbert put together before he left on his term then, signage was the number one issue that everybody, and exactly the same thing you are all talking about. It is a balance. It is a balance because you've got to make it look good without being gaudy, but yet I do believe that businesses need the help of signage, and that's always been the argument, and it's been a big pushback on this. I know that the chamber talked about it for 10 years before the business task force, and I can tell you this: in the downtown district, we just implemented a new sign ordinance a couple of years ago, I think. Michael?
We updated, yeah, something like that.
It updated. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, they finally got it right, because they brought in somebody in the building department that was like down in somewhere that came up with these ideas I thought that were very good. But I do think that we need to look at it in a continual way, because there's all kinds of things that come out that could be used, and if we don't allow it, we may talk about it and allowing it. So I'm fine with that, but I do understand it's a difficult one, because right now we're understaffed and we're putting a lot on the building department. I would like to have those discussions again to see what we can come up with.
Vice Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I think, as Councilman Albritton mentioned, that it goes back 20 years. It probably goes back 50, 60 years. It goes back ad infinitum.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Zeus did a little cartoon thing back in the 50s in San Diego, talking about sign clutter, and my sign's bigger, and this build a bigger sign, and everybody's in a race, to the moon. It's always a kind of a point of conflict, I think, sometimes between administrative staff and the council, because you get, you're where the buck stops, right? So you get all of the comments on signage
Staff tries to protect, in our case, the aesthetic value. Now, I will tell you that I think probably from an administrative staff standpoint, over the years, we think that Clearwater has benefited greatly by virtue of having a higher aesthetic value. That's a part of the community fiber. That's what makes us Clearwater. Probably the most heavily regulated area of your city is Clearwater Beach, which is probably one of the most dynamic, aggressively developed areas of the community, and yet it has the highest regulatory standards there are. The reason for that is that there's a lot of value created on the beach, and you don't have to pay people to be out there, similar to what we do downtown with grants and renovation grants and build-out grants and everything else that you find. So I think what I would like to ask for on staff's behalf, unless this is moving to our top list of priorities, what I would say or ask you to consider is giving staff some time over the next few months to try to get some of their plate cleared with some of this year's major initiatives. And then maybe towards the, and I'm thinking summertime to later in the, fall, Gina, we could come back and walk through with you the nature of our sign code in a little more comprehensive manner. I would submit to you that we actually have a very generous sign code. What is onerous about it that some people don't like is it's very design oriented. So if you want to have more signs, we'll give you more signs. If you want to have larger signs, we'll give you larger signs. But it comes along with a design review process. And I think to Councilman Albrecht, one of your last points about what we did a couple of years ago, there was a lot of discussion to get staff to amend the sign code to be able to do things that nobody was ever asking us to do. And so then we amended the sign code to do that, and then for a good period of time, no one ever applied for it. So we were giving away comp sign approvals downtown, but nobody was coming in and asking for comp sign approvals downtown. Most of them would meet a minimum standard. They'd come in, get their permit, walk out, do the signs. I think that's since changed to some extent. We've had some people asking for that. The last thing I'll say is a lot of what you get is, I think we have discussion about the rope signs around windows. I think those are things that staff is generally going to recommend against from pure aesthetic value. I think it detracts from the value of our commercial corridors. These are our front doors of limited value, but you get pressure from the rope signs, the neon rope signs. You get pressure from the waving things out on the right-of-way, a lot of those things. So I think staff always wants to be prepared to make for you the case on aesthetics and value created in sense of place with a better standard than maybe some of our neighbors have with regard to signage and the benefit to that. So I'd like to ask you if we could give them time to prepare and kind of lead up to that point. I think it'd benefit both you and staff in terms of giving you a better understanding to kind of comment, and maybe you can help clarify where you think it is that we need to go.
Well, I think that's more than fair. We've been talking about it for 20 years or 50 or 60 years.
We'll be talking about it 20 years from now, same thing.
I know, but it is something we should take action on, and if it, you certainly have the time to do it. Councilmember Beck.
And maybe, when you have the planning department focused on aesthetics, which I appreciate, maybe we should bring in our economic development director as well as part of the conversation. And she can represent, businesses that are here. And so, again, as we're talking about a balance.
It is a balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that we're missing, is the voice from the businesses. Mm-hmm. We hear the staffs, we hear ours, what do you call it, pushback? Those are real people trying to make a living. And so that's what's missing, the voice of the businesses in all this decision-making, and that's what I want to see.
Well,
and I'm willing to wait a little bit more for that.
It is still a balance. I'll tell you, if you want to see how good our sign ordinance is, go down to Broward County. You can drive around, you'll never find anything because the signs they allow down there are about this big. And you have to, I go down, now they may have changed it. This was 10, 12 years ago, but I would go down to visit my daughter or my sister, and I'd want to go bring a bottle of wine or something, and I could never find the grocery store because the signs were so small down there that they, you couldn't find anything. All you saw was just greenery. It was beautiful.
Yeah, was it pretty?
Yeah, but you couldn't find anything to boot, so.
It's complicated. It's, we're, the Supreme Court has restricted our ability to regulate content. And so you think about opening up dolphins. Nobody cares about the picture of a dolphin on the side of a building. It's beautiful. But think of all the hundreds of different types of businesses that are out there in the community, and maybe you wouldn't want their product and services to be painted on the side of the building. Might not be as benign as dolphins. So there's a lot of complexity in the sign code. Clearwater has made Supreme Court decisions with our sign code over the years. We have a long history of it, mainly as we attempted to clean up Gulf to Bay. And if some of you have seen the pictures of what Gulf to Bay used to look like, no, Councilman Albritton, you lived through a lot of that, those older sign days.
Thank that man over there.
Huge amount of difference for our front door, Gulf to Bay now versus what it was in the 70s. Huge.
I'm a huge movie buff fan, and one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. And in that movie, you can see the importance of signage, because you've got charming Bedford Falls, where Jimmy Stewart lives, and in the nightmare version of it, the exact same town suddenly is garish with flashing neon. And so, yeah, aesthetics are important. And I'm happy that we're going to be looking at this. And
we'll plan some preparation for you and then work with you about exactly when we want to have that discussion.
thank you. Well, it's time for closing comments. Let's start with Councilmember Albritton.
Okay, I wanted to give you an MPO update. We had a Fort Pinellas meeting last week, and one of the things that we're discussing, and we've been discussing for a while, is consideration is underway to merge the region's metropolitan planning organization, which is the MPO. We want to combine Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco counties into a single Tampa Bay MPO. A metropolitan planning organization is federally mandated transportation policy-making organization made up of representatives from local governments and governmental transportation authorities that develop solutions to regional transportation problems. Formation of the Tampa Bay MPO would create a tri-county council of city and county elected officials to agree on plans and priorities for funding major roads, rapid transit, greenway trails, and other transportation improvements. The motivation for creating a single regional transportation planning body for the Tampa Bay area is to better harness the collective strength of the region and garner more funding from federal, state, and local sources, and advance significant transportation projects to better support the region's growth and sustain its quality of life. This regional MPO has been discussed for over a year and continues to move forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Teixeira?
None at this time.
All right. Councilmember Beckman?
Thank you. Well, I wanted to use my 3 minutes to give an update, and I think it's real important that we understand this. So I serve as the chair of the Continuum of Care board, and it's our countywide board that works with the Homeless Leadership Alliance to reduce and prevent homelessness, and we use HUD federal dollars to help work with those efforts. And anyway, I sent out this letter last week because in this legislative session, Florida Senate Bill 1530 and House Bill 1365 passed and have been sent to Governor DeSantis's desk to sign, and he's expected to sign this legislation. And these bills, if enacted, will have significant implications for our community and the work we do to address homelessness in Pinellas County. And essentially what these are unfunded mandates. These laws require local governments, which is us in Clearwater, to designate safe sleeping zones for people who are unhoused, our residents who don't have homes. These designated zones could only be in place for 365 days at a time, and would require certification from the Florida Department of Children, or DCF. These zones may only be in specific areas, and they must be secure, they must be substance-free, and include access to access to restrooms and running water. Additionally, coordination with local substance use and mental health providers is required. It's important to note right now that no funding is currently allocated to this mandate. Additionally, these bills would grant residents and businesses the ability to sue local governments for noncompliance. And so on the one hand, as chair of the COC and a person who works hard with a bunch of organizations in our region to reduce and prevent homelessness, this is good. It means that cities must provide mental health, substance abuse, security, showers, a safe place for these people who are unhoused to live. But it's bad because we've got no money to do that. We've got no state funding for this. The number that's been kind of bantered about is maybe $10 million, which you think about the whole state. Is that going to go far? Not at all. Think about Pinellas County and Clearwater, incredibly built out. Where are we going to find the land to put these people? Right now, we have about 80 chronic homeless just in Clearwater. At any one time, we have about 140 families plus who are waiting for family shelter. If you think we're going to find a designated place for homeless people, provide mental health services, substance abuse services, showers, bathrooms, safety and security so their belongings don't get stolen, and do this by October 1st, I don't know where you think the money's going to come from. I don't know where we think the staffing is going to come from. I don't know where the location is going to come from. I don't know if the county is going to take it on and then have their hand out for each municipality. I don't know if the businesses who don't like to see people sleeping on the ground are going to sue us. It's just a really frightening situation. And so I want us to be prepared. If this law goes into effect October 1st, I mean, our budget needs to be allocated right now. And we need to work on a plan. So I'll tell you, I continue to serve as the COC chair, through the summer, and this is something that we are working on and wanting to educate municipalities about it. But it's crucial for us to be aware of these developments as they will directly impact our approach to addressing homelessness in our community. It's almost like, and there's a Supreme Court case that's up before the Supreme Court right now that they should rule on it. It's Johnson versus Grants Pass, Oregon, about criminalizing homelessness when a community doesn't have enough homes for their people. And that the headline in today's Tribune was about, or Tampa Bay Times, was about, record evictions from these corporations that are managing rentals. We heard that 35 people are moving into Pinellas County every day, 35 net people. And so if we don't think this is a reality, we're sadly mistaken. And on top of that, I'll tell you that the state of Florida is like number 47, 48, or 49 in the amount of money they allocate for mental health and substance abuse. So we have huge challenges here. And I wonder about how vulnerable the city is and how responsible we are for addressing this and who's looking at it right now as what we're going to do. So that's just, there aren't easy answers, but it better be a heads up. I sent this letter to all of our funders and providers and members of the HLA and the COC. People are aware. We are having meetings, and we'll see what's going on, but it's serious. And then to finish up, and thank you for allowing me to go past 3 minutes. But our election is tomorrow. It's a significant municipal election. Please vote. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can go to votepinellas.org to find out your precinct location. There have been some precinct location changes. And don't forget to vote in regards to the charter amendment changing our election format. And I want to thank those people who do vote and are engaged civically.
Thank you. Well, this may be the last meeting for some of us up here. Hopefully not. We'll find out tomorrow night. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be serving here. So, I'm sorry, I didn't think I'd break up within the first 5 seconds. I did want to point out, one person who we know is not going to be back is Mayor Brian J. Ong Sr. And I just wanted to thank him. He stepped up when Mayor Hibbard resigned in the middle of a meeting, and he's done a fine job of keeping things going here. And I appreciate the fact that he was here. I know there are people in the community who think there's been chaos because of, the turnover that we've had with how many city managers in the last few years, and the mayor quitting in the middle of the meeting. But I'd like to point out that when Mayor Hibbard quit, we took a 10-minute recess, and Vice Mayor Beckman took over, and we finished the day's work. And everything has remained on track. The projects we wanted to do, they're moving forward. So I never felt the chaos myself here. I was always confident. We have such an amazing team, staff, city managers, city attorney, everyone who works here. It's just, delightful to work with. And I appreciate their efforts. So if this is the last time I'm sitting here, it's been a pleasure. If it is, you'll see me back out there at the podium. When I first moved here in 2000, when Mayor Ongst was the mayor then, I used to stand up there and irritate him, and I got a chance to do it a little more close to him this time. I hope I wasn't too annoying. But I'll keep fighting for the city every way I can. So thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.